Ladies and gentlemen, if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned in the Consequence of Habit podcast, and this is your host, JT. Hey guys, I need a little support from you. As many of you know, this podcast, this project has grown, it's morphed, it's evolved into something much bigger than I could have ever dreamed of. Over the past 60 episodes, guests have come on here and they've kind of bared their souls about habits, some really bad ones, some really good ones, and everything in between. And we've taken these lessons and we're putting them in action. We're making them more than just an episode of a podcast. We're holding in-person events, and we're doing that through our Consequence of Habit 501c3 nonprofit. And I've been super fortunate that man, I've had buy-in and people join the team that are unbelievably qualified. But at the end of the day, you can have the best lessons in the world, be surrounded by the most qualified people, but without money, well, they're just great ideas. So if you find value in this podcast, if it's inspired you, if the guests have had any positive impact on your life and it's in your means, then I ask you to head over to consequenceofhabit.org and show us a little love. All right, that brings us to this week's guest. You know, in Stoic Philosophy, they have this saying, it's not what happens to you, it's what your response to it is. Let me give you some backstory of SaraMae Hollandsworth. SaraMae was an accomplished athlete. She ran in college. She competed in fitness competitions. She was a personal trainer. And through a medical issue that she had, her body shut down on her. This thing she'd spent so much time developing and priding herself on had turned on her to the point where she was dying. I mean, she literally says it in the interview. She said, "I need to go to the hospital. I'm dying." And she was right. And unfortunately, one of the side effects of one of the medications that saved her life cut off blood flow to some of her extremities, and she lost both her legs. Now ask yourself, how would you react in that moment? Well, I'm here to tell you, SaraMae did not spend very much time feeling sorry for herself. She decided that this was not going to define her. This did not change the same spirit she has, and she's kicking ass. SaraMae is very candid about her story and some of the difficulties, not just physically, but mentally, and some of the tough conversations she's had to have with herself. I walked away with this one, man, inspired. So I'll shut up. Please welcome to the podcast, SaraMae Hollandsworth. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you joining us. Today, we are honored to have on SaraMae. SaraMae, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to connect and share a little bit of our journey with your audience.
Yes. All right. So first off, the viewers aren't seeing it, but you're rocking your Athletic Brewing Ambassador t-shirt.
Gotta rock it. I even have one here to enjoy.
See, I always have one while I'm doing this, and I'm embarrassed to say I'm clean out.
I know, years, but sorry.
I got nothing. I got a case coming Monday, so checks in the mail.
Yay!
So maybe we'll start off with that. This you've been an ambassador now for how long?
Goodness gracious. Time is obviously flying for all of us, I'm sure. So it seems like it's been about 6 months, but that means it could be like 3 months or a year. I'm not totally sure.
Right. And how did that whole thing come to be?
I just love athletic brewing. I've kind of just been a fan for some time. And then I like to have a lot of fun, but health is my highest priority. And so I realized I want to be able to have a lot of fun, specifically fitness type fun. And This is a lot better than maybe cracking open an alcoholic beverage at the gym.
Yeah.
So I was super excited, and then they're just so good. So it gives me that, that enjoyment without sacrificing health.
Yeah, they are pretty fantastic. So that's how I came upon your story. Right. And I've been doing some SaraMae research here in the past couple of days, kind of find out more about you. And we jump on a phone call for about 5-10 minutes just to kind of go over some stuff before this started. And there's anyone who's going to look at your Instagram, and that's the first thing I'm going to say is please get to SaraMae's Instagram, because you are putting out some amazing content, really good stuff, inspirational stuff. You've got a lot of things going on. One, you're lifting a boatload of weight. Right, you're doing some massive weight, and two, there's something else that's going to stand out when somebody sees it. You happen to be missing a couple body parts.
I do. I forget that myself, so I'm glad you threw that out there. My prosthetics are incredible. I'm so grateful. I have an amazing prosthetist. It's literally blows my mind, the quality of legs we get to have, where I don't even think about it. It feels like part of my body. And like you said, I'm lifting some heavy weight. So it's so cool that it feels a part of me to be able to do that again. It's not at the exact level that I used to do it, but in a way that feels really good.
We're going to get into that, obviously the entire story about that. But when I first kind of stumbled onto the Instagram, and one of the great things about the Athletic Brewing Ambassador program is they've built a community, right? Like
oh my gosh, love it.
It's an amazing group of people, all kind of like-minded in the fact that fitness plays a big part of their life, and maybe, for some alcohol doesn't at all, and for others it's just an alternative for times they don't want to drink. But
yeah.
So I was on there, and I was so inspired, and I'm sure you hear that all the time. And I know that's probably not why you do what you do, but really I'm going to just jump right to it. From what I know about you, you've picked up in a part of your life, as far as your fitness goals have gone, even though, a lot of people at the point that you were at would say, all right, that is no longer part of my journey, right? Like this, mm-hmm. My life has changed dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
You are bucking the system as far as that goes. And
yeah,
I just want to get into it. What made you think you could do it? And I mean that in the most respectful possible way. Like what was going on in your brain? You said, hey, listen, I no longer have parts of my legs, yet I'm going to squat. I think you said you're squatting 200 pounds, and that was one of the most recent posts.
Yeah, 225. I'm pumped about it.
225.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on in your brain? Like, what's telling your brain talking to itself and saying, hey, I'm still going to squat 225 pounds?
Well, a few things. I mean, I started working out really early. Like I was a kid, I was sweating to the oldies. That tells my age a little bit with my mom. As a young kid, I went to her step aerobics classes. I had a personal trainer, I think at the age 14, and took up lifting. I did bodybuilding. I've been a personal trainer my whole life. So that's just who I am. And of course, when I knew I was going to lose my legs, there was a fear of, it was more of how. I mean, of course, I think anytime we go through something life altering, incredibly challenging, we're going to have the voices of doubt. Like, can I do this? Am I up to this? But I just really set out to define, because there's some negative stigma from back in the day and just different things. And so I was incredibly intentional about creating a very positive future for myself. And so that started with researching and finding other amputee athletes to see the things that they were doing. So I have to really pay tribute to those who've gone before me and were doing amazing things that created a picture of like, I really can do anything. And then my life, I've been training for this. I've done so many reps, I couldn't ever begin to put a number on it. So it was just like, we're going to do the reps. It might be different and we're going to figure it out. And then I just have a really incredible prosthetist who makes it possible, and, foundations that donate the prosthesis, because those aren't covered by insurance, that allow us to be athletes. So it kind of takes a village, but then I have that, driving force as the engine.
Yeah, I love the fact that you start seeking out people immediately and other athletes because I would imagine that the message that they're giving you is not the same message you're getting from a bunch of other people. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, very much. I mean, even I remember wheeling into one of my hospital appointments for who knows what in a wheelchair, and them even saying, "Are you going to get prosthetics?" And in my head, I'm like, why would I sit in a chair if I don't have to, because I have most of my legs and I'm, not paralyzed, and I just see movement as a blessing and a gift. So I'm like, whatever is available to me, I'm going to use it to the fullest and probably try to expand it. So there was just a lot of that. Like, it's not, I remember I really tried to refuse when I was in the hospital with my amputations. They were encouraging me to go to a support group there, and I was refusing, and they were like, "You're in denial, you need to do this." They just wore me down, the nurses. So I finally went, and that was like the lowest moment for me, because first of all, I was the only fresh amputee there. There was one other person who was facing amputation. There was someone who was a couple months ahead of me, and then people who at various points. But I ended up like encouraging everybody and kind of leading the group of like, there's so much we can do. And it was a very depressing environment. And it was hard. Like, there was a moment where I felt like there was just this really grim outcome, but then I tried to just pour into the people who were there. Cause I get it. Like, it's not for any of us, it doesn't matter. Whatever challenges our challenge and the thing that stretches us. I think there's so many people that feel like they don't have a support system, or kind of like you said, that wasn't necessarily the picture that was being painted to me, maybe from people around me, maybe from within the healthcare system, but I created that image for myself, and not everybody necessarily knows how to do that, right? Or is prepared to, but I thank goodness for like my personal growth journey leading up to it. I had a fairly solid foundation of like, okay, I kind of know what to do. I can take these tools. It's a much higher level challenge, but let me take some of the tools and habits that helped me overcome in other ways leading up and apply them to this.
Yeah. And I want to get into those habits, because I would imagine your journey without having that kind of foundation would have been precarious at the most, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times I feel like we fall into these roles of a title, right? So they say, SaraMae, you are now an amputee, and we're going to put you with this other group of amputees, and they fall into line with what goes along with that community. I'm speculating, right? Yeah. I've never been in it, but I've seen it in other communities. And there's a power in saying, no, I'm going to, like, that doesn't apply to me. Like, I'm going to make my own future. And that's where I think a lot of times that ignorance really is what a lot of people need.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It was carving that, because there's different support groups and things that I reached out to. And I just remember I was maybe a little bit abrasive. I didn't mean to be, but I was just like, I need to talk to athletes, and they need to be high level athletes. Like, if there's someone that's going to be a peer support person for me, they need to be savages.
Yes.
And then I just remember it's like, I wasn't coming across that, and that's not what I was getting. And so then, again, seeking it out, because it's like, we get to decide whatever challenge we face, we get to decide what we're going to do with it. And I was like, I'm going to kick its ass. So I need to find other people who are doing that. So that's the picture in my mind that I'm pushing for, and I'm kind of chasing that, I think, every day with the work that I'm putting in. But I'm also like, it's like healing me, the girl that, first of all, my spirit that's always been me. And then the me that lost my legs and feared, what am I going to be able to do? What's life going to look like? It's like, I'm paying tribute to that with every workout that I put in, as well as just, I've always had a sense of responsibility of like showing people what's possible, breaking cycles, different things like that. And so that really drives me, just by showing up, doing the work, getting better, not having, limitations, or obviously we all have them to some extent, but like you said, bucking the system.
Does that help you hold yourself accountable in ways, knowing that it's almost not necessarily service work, but there are people that are going to be in the boat, like the same boat, and they're going to say, I need to talk to an athlete, and they need to be savage, and you might be you might be the one they're looking to.
Totally. And I would like to do everything that I can to always be available to speak that life into someone who might need it. And obviously it's like we all have our thing that maybe haunts us, that we're overcoming. You could call it a disability or a handicap, and they're not visible, right. Most of the people. It's like I had mine, the things that I struggled with before. And so I think there's something powerful in, you can see a physical, visible challenge on me. People see that. And obviously by the way that I try to carry myself, I'm very intentional of giving someone hope and strength through that. So they can see she's obviously like standing on something that could have taken her out and thriving, to send a message to whoever sees it that that's possible for everybody.
I'm interested in when somebody's identity is in question, right? When somebody has put a large amount of their time and their life into something, and then that thing potentially can go away. So let's start off with your life and fitness, right? Let's get into how early you started and kind of your progression up until the time that you lost your legs.
Yeah. Again, I'm a lifelong runner. That was my dad used to run back in like middle school against Prefontaine. I'm from Oregon. Running is like the religion here. So, that's what I cut my teeth on, and mostly a sprinter, but I did distance stuff, and that's just always been the thing for me. And then I also started lifting weights at like 14. So that's been there my whole life. I was a college runner, personal trainer. At the time that this all happened to me, I had done fitness competitions in my early 20s. And then 10 years later, I was doing fitness competitions as well. I was preparing for one as well as a half marathon. And that's when all this happened. I was running up stadium stairs in Dallas, Texas with my boot camp clients. And I was like, I don't feel right. Like, I know my body, I didn't feel injured, but I was like, I don't feel right. And I was pushing through it because that's, I think it's athletes that we're conditioned to do. And I probably do that a little bit more than I always should. And then it just, it got so bad, it was progressively getting worse that I ended up in the ER. And that's when I went into full organ failure, was on life support and placed in a medically induced coma for a couple of weeks, not expected to live, which feels weird to say. The cool part about that is I remember the coma, and it was like very much like mental warfare going on. It felt like I was fighting for my life. That's exactly what I was doing in the coma, but I believe that was true in reality as well. Like there was just this fight, because I had this understanding that if I quit fighting, then the suffering could stop. But I also had this understanding that meant my death. So it's cool for me to reflect on I think we work hard at things and we don't necessarily always see the fruit, or we don't even understand the fullness of how it blesses our life. Right. And there's just this awareness of all the fight in me and all those reps that I've taken, and all that stuff really served me in a fight for my life in a kind of dramatic way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is dramatic. I mean, it's I heard you say in another podcast that you initially gone in with some lower back pain. They thought it was sciatic pain, pumped you up with some drugs. But that at some point you said, I'm dying.
Yeah. I went in the hospital the first day. Like you said, they believed it to be sciatica, sent me home full of morphine. And then I vaguely, at this point, I was in and out of consciousness. And I remember at one bout when I was awake, I said, I'm dying. And so they rushed me back in, and I was dying.
What made you feel that? What was the feeling? It was like, hey, this I'm, you hear people say they have the flu, I'm dying, but you were dying.
I was dying.
You were Can you even put that into words on what was it? Was it a feeling? Was it pain? What was it?
I think it's a both. Again, as athletes, we're hardwired, hard chargers, push through. This would have been like, I mean, I haven't broken a bone. Granted, I've had some of it removed, but some I think if you're an athlete and you just have this blow and this isn't just a regular injury or thing, it was mind-bending pain. I was sweating profusely, and I think I kind of felt, it's going to sound weird, but like my soul, like in and out, like I was on the way out. I just had this, and I mean, had I have not gone in that night, I would have died probably that night of my sleep. I mean, I was dying. So I just knew.
I want to let you tell a story, but you go into full organ failure. I'm gonna, because I don't want to butcher this. I'm gonna let you kind of take us from there, and then I'll stop you because I have some questions and some comments about this insane war you were at within your own mind as well, like during a coma and plus physically. So walk us through it.
Yeah. So I went back in. It was the second time. I think it was like 24 hours later after they'd sent me home. I guess right before I went in, I used the restroom. I peed. It was black. So that is clearly my kidneys were failing. And then they said, we are going to have to put her under to save her. And they didn't. I mean, they really didn't expect me to live. They told everybody to say goodbye. And pretty much right away, my blood pressure tanked to like not even really survivable levels. So they pumped me full of vasopressors, which kept all of the blood flow localized to my vital organs and brain. And that's what ultimately made me lose my legs, because I lost blood flow to my feet. And then I had a heart attack. My kidneys crashed. I think pretty much all of it during that time.
I asked you on the phone, and I've heard you say it before, like, they don't even truly know exactly because they couldn't do the diagnostic tests to figure that out. That's got to leave you scratching your head like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, that was a journey in and of itself, because I had this fear of like, did I do this to myself to some extent, And then there was kind of this acceptance and radical responsibility of it. And there were warning signs, like there really were. So to back up, it was septic shock. My body was in septic shock. It was from MSSA. So it's like a different form of MRSA. Luckily, my kind responds to antibiotics. Sure, so I think that gave me a leg up, sort of. But they're kind of best guess. So when I woke up from the coma, I was telling them my hip still hurt. And I think at that point they were like, that's the least of your worries, is what it felt like. So there wasn't a lot. And unfortunately in healthcare, it's a lot of treating the symptoms and not necessarily getting to the root. And I'm a root cause girl. So I was like, this was here before, it's still here now. What's going on? I was also kind of out of it. So in the hospital, there wasn't like a ton of answers around my hip, but fast forward, and it was a long journey. When I went to have my legs amputated, I told him, I'm very concerned. I still have this pain in my hip. So when you amputate my feet, that's not going to take care of this pain in my hip. And I need to know like what it is. And I don't want to, it's so bad that I don't want to move, because movement, the pain is unbearable, but I don't want to medicate enough to, take the pain away. So finally I got them to look at it, and he said the hip's destroyed, and his best guess is that that's where the infection started, that then spread in my body and caused me to be septic. So it's like likely the cause, but it's just kind of a best guess.
I guess it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's totally where I came to, but it doesn't matter. It wouldn't change anything, right? No. Like even if, but it just wouldn't change anything.
But I'm sure that conclusion took a while, because you must question everything. Like you are a fit woman. You have been, your entire life, and to have something so drastically extreme happen to you physically. I mean, you had to be like, what the fuck happened? I thought everything was good. So totally.
But it really took my foundation, because, we're I believe we're multifaceted, like the whole mind, body, soul, it's all connected. And I had the physicality on lock, but I for sure had other areas of my life that sabotaged a lot of that. You know, like I wasn't in a good environment. I was in a toxic relationship. I was physically in pain, but I was in the habit of ignoring pain physically, just like mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So there's so much that was connected that it was kind of like the hero's journey, and that I was put in the fire, you know, like you said, identity, loss of identity. Who am I now? Who do I desire to be? Like all that wasn't me, all that was false really like burnt away. And then what is me has continued to develop to a greater degree. And I'm still, you know, walking that out, figuring that out daily. It's like a lifelong journey, which is the fun, like the gold it's like a scavenger hunt of ourselves. But yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, it's weird how that whole like the pain pleasure thing, it's all in the same place in the brain on where we feel it. And you know, you question why we surround ourselves with like either a relationship or doing something unhealthy. And I mean, you hear people say, I wouldn't change this, right? And you've probably been asked this 1,000 times. How do you even answer that? Is this... Can you at some point go, this is a positive? Do you think you would have started on the journey regardless of what happened? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
The honest answer is, and I feel like this is, I don't know, I don't want to surmise what anyone else feels, but the honest answer is it depends what day you ask me, right? Like, that makes sense. Of course, I would want my old body back and different things like that. And I would like who I've become because of it, both of those to be able to move forward. And I was on the journey, you know, that's the hard part, is like, I was on the personal development growth journey, and I feel that it was possible that I would have gotten there, but I also just trust that. And I did, like, I made the choice when all this happened, because of course I didn't feel like, what a gift. Of course not. It was very much the opposite. But I was like, I have an opportunity to decide. And I was like, I just don't believe in like a cruel universe, God, whatever your belief is. And so I was like, I just believe that this happened for me, and that I'm going to have a chance to be of service through this for the greater good. And that was kind of the decision that, even when I didn't feel good, was like my North Star that I constantly kind of leaned towards, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. When I think about your story, I do. And it's not an I mean, I want to tread lightly on this. It's amazing that the thing that you enjoy doing the most, which is fitness, right? It's lifting, it's pushing yourself physically. I can't imagine you would ever think that that thing was going to be what inspires so many people. But to get to that, the sacrifice is immense. It's immense. So it's got to be a strange thing to wrap your head around, and like have people come to you and be like, this is so inspirational. You're like, well, this is what I do. This is me. I just happen now not to have part of my legs. So it's
totally.
It's got to be a weird place for you.
It is. And I think that's one of those things that we kind of talked about, like what is you remains. Yeah. And it was kind of that. It's like, I wanted to inspire beforehand, and I did. I've always been known for that through my strength. Sure. But I think we all have weakness. We're humans, like, and no one wants to really share that necessarily, right? Like I didn't. I was always just trying to be stronger, better, stronger, better, stronger, better. And this has made me incredibly in touch and almost like honoring of our humanity. And so I think now it's like my strength standing on a quote unquote weakness, or, you know, my visible thing that we all have. And so I understand how it was maybe limited before, or not even limited, but it's just like greater now, which I think is cool. I'm so grateful that I still get to have that, because that was my fears that I wouldn't. And then of course I still do. And now it's just magnified, which is such a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Like, I mean, you alluded to it in the beginning, like everyone has something. A lot of times it's internal. Yours just happens to be external, and people can see it. And that is truly an amazing opportunity to really, and I don't even want to say role model, because you're just being you, right? You're just being you, and people are seeing it. But what was the process from from the time that this happens to you can actually, because, you mentioned your hip, you have to have hip replacement. I mean, right there, take somebody with two functional legs that's got hip replacement. The idea of squatting 225 seems like it is distant. If you did it, it's a distant memory.
Unlikely.
Yeah, very unlikely. What was the process here? You have the hip replacement. How long before SaraMae is like, hey, I need to get doing something like now?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's crazy to think about now because it's like 225 is what I'm doing now. And when I first had my hip replaced, I remember trying to lift my leg, like doing a clamshell or like Jane Fonda leg lift on your side with half my leg. And I could only get like an inch of movement. And I just remember, like, literally before I almost died, I was leg pressing like 1,000 pounds and squatting like 385. I don't know. I've always been a heavy lifter. So to be laying there unable, I mean, just that was my reality. I was like, how in the hell will I ever get where I am now? And it took time. And honestly, it took time for me, like mentally and emotionally. I've seen, and I get like FOMO, I've seen so many new amputees come back and quickly kick ass. And I wish that had been my story, but I had to put the pieces of like my mind and my spirit back together. I've always been strong and fit. I never knew otherwise. So to go from being like the teacher and then becoming the student, and to such an extreme degree, while also like protecting the way that I thought about myself and the way that I envisioned my future and moving through that, like that just took so much for me. And I was just honestly exhausted. And then I avoided, because I was heartbroken. So I avoided fitness a lot. I didn't want to be where I was at. And so that took a couple of years, to be honest. And then I was like, okay, kind of like you said, like I have to do this. And I just went into the gym with like tears streaming down my face and did like the little movements that I could and that still felt normal. And then I like, expanded upon that. But I'm just like a fish in water in the gym. It's like, once you put me in the gym, I'm going to figure it out. And that's where I'm so freaking grateful for the most of my life of putting in the reps, because that muscle memory just paid off in dividends. And I know that's, plays a big role in what I'm able to do and how much I'm able to do. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. I mean, you're even talking about like other amputees that kind of get into it and they seem like they're kicking ass. I imagine the healing. I mean, you're talking about your body's shutting down, right? Like it's not like they just, you just had, part of your legs taken off. Like this is like, you were in a coma having like this battle in your mind of whether, to give into the darkness or light or whatever it is. It's like, so, and I'm sure that must have been very, very hard. Just that thought of going back to something that you were at such a high level and starting so low, but that's where the power is. And that's where it's like, I'll go to a triathlon or I'll go somewhere and I'll see somebody that they're clearly, this is their first one, right? This is not their normal thing. And I'm almost more inspired by that than the man or woman that's winning it. You know what I mean? I think it's awesome. It
takes more of us to start and begin, for sure. Yeah. That's where like the bravery is. Like you said, it doesn't take a lot of bravery to go kick ass repeatedly.
Yeah.
When you've been doing it all the time.
Sure. Do a lot of people reach out to you that are maybe in similar situations or potentially going to be going through the same kind of thing?
Yeah. And I'm super grateful. I've had, like nurses that were with me in the ICU or different people that are still in the community, like my prosthetist or whoever they'll put me in touch with, like a new amputee or else other amputees will. And I think some find me on social media, which I'm incredibly grateful to do. It's just like paying it forward from those who did it for me. So that's probably my favorite thing to do.
Has some of those people been from like the veteran community?
I have been blessed to work with them and I'm excited to do more of that work. That's been I've always felt really close to veterans. I almost enlisted out of high school to the Marines,
All right.
and had friends who served. And then, losing legs, like a large population are wounded veterans, like when you're at the prosthetist office or things like that. And I think there's also just a like understanding of battle and being a warrior and some of that things that there's like a shared language there. So
Yeah.
that community has my heart for sure.
You share an outlook on life. I had an opportunity to interview Travis Mills. I don't know if that name sounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I've met Travis.
Oh, have you really?
Uh-huh.
And it was almost when you talked about acceptance, and his was like an acceptance of, all right, I used to have my arms and legs, and I don't anymore.
Right.
I can dwell on that forever, but that seems kind of pointless. So this is just my life from here on out. And then other people don't have that outlook. Like, what do you think the difference on that is? Like if you could talk to somebody who doesn't have that kind of positive outlook, and you were going to try and give them these words of wisdom, like what do you think that makes your brain a little bit different in processing that than maybe some others?
I think part of it is the work that I've put into personal development. And this was like the test. This was like where I really got to take my head knowledge and, apply it. And I think there's a level, because not to sound cheesy, but I was voted like best body in high school. I was a bikini model, fitness competitor. So my physical body, outside of just my ability, has been a huge part of my identity. And because of that, I think I had an extra opportunity to accept it outside of just functionality. Because I think what I've witnessed is a lot in the community is, insecurity in appearance and different things like that. Like it's real. And I think having come from fitness model and being known for my body in that way, to then meeting it. And again, like you said, it wasn't just, oh, I lost my leg. It was like my body went through hell. I went into the coma, like ready to walk on stage the next week, and ballooned up. I was like maybe 115, super lean, ballooned up to like 160 pounds because my kidneys shut down. It was full of liquid, just like oozing out of my body. And then when I left the ICU and the hospital 6 weeks later, I was like 85 pounds. And I literally looked like I'd just come from the Holocaust. I'll never forget when I caught my eye in the mirror for the first time. And it looked like a corpse looking back at me and just chilled me through the bone. So talk about like when you lose your identity, it was like, okay, this is wow. And sitting with that was the other thing. Like I am literally a runner, but I would say I emotionally tend to run. I run from what's uncomfortable. That's my past patterning.
Sure.
And so having to sit, like getting stuck in a wheelchair and just having to sit with everything, that was an opportunity. Because again, everybody wants to run. That's why our society has so many problems with like pharmaceuticals and drugs and different things like that. We're trying to numb, we're trying to do all that. And so that was a chance to sit with it. And that's honestly like the cure, that whole, I don't want to butcher the quote, but like the cure for the pain is the pain or something like that. It was that. And so I sat with the ways in which I didn't feel worthy, in which I didn't feel beautiful or whatever. I just sat with that and I accepted it. I chose to accept myself there because it was like, what else am I going to do? And who else is going to do it? Like I have to decide at my least beautiful, at my least kick-ass or whatever, like in my weakness, I get to choose to love and accept and honor myself. And that to me is the most powerful. So I'm catching myself because I was telling you, I have FOMO of some of the amputees who come back and physically kick ass quick. But I realized I did a lot of the internal work that I feel is often lacking in people, even further down the line, because I think it's easier to do our physical stuff first. And it's almost like the quicker you have that, the more you can avoid the deeper work, which that's the least comfortable part. So I just kind of had an opportunity to dig deep and kind of transmute all that stuff to come out the other side.
Yeah. You mentioned the mind body connection in the beginning. And I when I first got in the military, I was working at a Gold's Gym in Sacramento. And I was seeing these people that were on like the cover of these, Muscle and Fitness or Men's Health. And they were clearly, and I don't want to come off like a jerk here, because a lot of them were very nice. But when we talk about the fitness industry, now we're going back, right? We're going back to the 90s. It's not a mind body. It was a body.
Yeah. For sure.
It was the body, right? So I love that this kind of transformation is happening, where we're looking at things differently and we're trying to connect the whole mind body. What really stood out to me, what you just said, is you said I had the chance. And I think when I said, like, what's different, I think that's the difference. And this isn't me just blowing smoke. This is, you're not the first person I've talked to who's gone through some really hard shit. And it's the people, and maybe not in the moment, but that in retrospect, look back and go, you know, I had the chance. Or you've mentioned the word opportunity a couple of times, which is another one. It's like, it's the way that it's packaged in your own brain, where you can look at it in a certain way, because it's very easy just to give in, especially when when we talk about ways to deal with stress and trauma. And one of the first things, what do they tell you? Be active, get outside, be active. And this is something that you'd been doing your entire life, and it was taken away. So, man, I give you a lot of kudos for being able to look at it and go, hey, this is an opportunity to maybe to work through some of these things, especially coming from a sport where you're being judged.
Yeah, on appearance.
On appearance. Like, you're talking about identity and you giving power to other people on how you feel about yourself. Man, that had to be it's a tough road.
It is. And I'll tell you too, like, you're talking about seeing what's in the magazine. I mean, I grew up with all those on my wall, and I was in, I think, Muscle Media at one point, but being on stage, I remember it's like, that's where I've witnessed, like, hearing people, the greatest insecurity. Like, you look at those people, and that's what people do. That's what I did. That's what so many people do. Like, if I can get to this physicality, if I can lift this much weight, if I could have a 6-pack, if I could do that, I will feel good about myself. And it's like, that's the greatest lie ever. I had all those things. Right. It was honestly in when I was the least. And that's the decision of it. It was like when I looked not even like a human, like I looked like a creature.
Right.
That I made the decision to love and accept myself. That's what it is. So it's like, wherever you are in your journey, now is your opportunity. If you want to have the things that you're seeking, that's fine and great. But do you want to get there and still be insecure? Or do you want to get there and truly get to enjoy the things that you've had? And I would encourage everyone to enjoy it and not still be insecure, because that's the worst feeling, right? When we achieve a goal or whatever, and you're like, that didn't promise me the lies that I believed it would promise me. And I think that's a lot of the suffering that we're witnessing today worldwide.
100%. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a 6-pack. That could be, am I getting the next high, or the distraction from your phone, or from the video games, or for whatever it is.
Yep.
And I would imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the role as a role model. Yeah. Your role as a role model, which really can be looked at as service work, whether you intended it to be or not, brings a level of self-pride that it would be very hard to duplicate in any other way. I would imagine, that's got to kind of, like one of the things we're doing is we're trying to mix, like we have an event. It's a small one. It's our first one where we're out running, we're hiking, we're biking, but we're picking up trash, right? It's this.
Awesome.
So it's something for you, and then it's part of being involved in something bigger than you, kind of this service work. And then we're trying to connect that feeling of the emotion that goes along with that activity, and that feeling of self-pride, which is, I think so many people are missing these days, because it's all about how many likes can you get, or...
Totally.
Do you still suffer? Like, I shouldn't say suffer. Is it still something that kind of can draw you in, say social media?
Oh my gosh. Totally. So a funny story about me is I'm like numbers obsessed. I'm like Rain Man with numbers.
Okay.
So with anything, like I don't have a Fitbit, but I constantly am like, I want a stepper, but I would be like a dog with a bone. I would only go step all day. Like that's just how my brain is wired. So there's times where I'm like, I mean, I don't have the most followers, the most likes, the most anything, but there's times where that like bothers the numbers piece in my brain.
Sure.
But then I'm like, it literally means nothing. So I keep myself real. But yeah, it's easy. I think there's this comparison thing. What I'm noticing more, and I didn't feel it until maybe these last couple of years, because the world is really, kind of spotlighting amputees and adaptive athletes at this point. And so there almost feels like there's this pressure to kick butt or, like achieve this certain thing or that certain thing. And I got wrapped up into that a little bit, and I was CrossFitting, and I'm a competitor by nature. So I was doing that, but I was having to push myself farther than I should and getting injured for it. And that's where I just had to decide, like, it literally doesn't matter if I go achieve whatever, it's for if I've learned anything, I've learned that like honoring my health and how my body feels and how healthy and well it is much more important than whatever I achieve. So like scaling that back and just trying to not play the game and get drawn in.
It's hard to catch that, right? It's so easy, especially when that I would imagine maybe is a default mode, because even the other fitness stuff you come from, like this kind of constant comparison, you feel like if I'm not at this level, well, then I'm selling myself short.
Totally.
Yeah, man, it's got to be a strange little internal battle. Because I know just for myself, like anytime you put something out there, whether it be a podcast or whatever, whether it's videos lifting or, it can be a slippery slope.
Totally.
Like what? How is this being taken? I mean, I'm so envious of people like just post something and then you're like, well, I'm like, did it do good? They're like, I don't know. I didn't look. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What is wrong with me? Because I've been on mine about 30 times today.
Totally. I just texted about that last night with a friend, and I was like, I need to do that. I need to just put it out there and leave it alone. And I go through stages. And when I do that, I'm great. And funny enough, that's when things tend to take off more. Yeah. The more attached to it I am. It's like last night I posted something. I was like, I feel like this is so great. And maybe it was just for me. It was like meant a lot to me. There's not a lot that happened, and that's fine. But I was like, what's wrong? The achiever in me, I was like, what's wrong? And then I'm like, it literally doesn't matter.
I'll do the same thing. I'm like, I'm trying to put the equation, like what is it that does well and what doesn't, and it's pointless, and it's only going to drive me crazy. So we're actually, I'm going to keep you in the loop. We're actually doing a digital fast for February, where we're waiting until February because we have some college students that are going to be coming back. So, I say college students, but I'm 46 and I'm just as low-lying fruit for this kind of stuff as an 18-year-old. So to really kind of step away from it, because it can monopolize parts of people's days for sure. Like it is.
Totally.
That dopamine, we'll get it one way or the other. It could be.
I know. When I catch it, I often just turn my phone off for maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a day. It's just like, I need to just because I think too, we're just wired, we're wired to the gaming, the technology, all of that. So I just notice my hand and brain goes to it. I'm not even like actually engaging. And it's like, ew, it's like chewing your nails or something. I'm like, I need to turn it off.
No, we do. It's the modern day. I think I heard
cigarettes.
Yeah, right. It's the new smoking. Well, were you talking about being, or maybe you didn't. I'm going to bring it up. The word authentic, right? Authenticity. If somebody does, and again, please go to SaraMae's Instagram, and it's going to be in the show notes. There is such an authentic joy when you get done lifting something and you get it, like you're jumping up and down and hugging friends. Anyone watching it, honestly, you can't help but smile. It's fantastic. So I don't know how you could take that, but I watch. I'm like, this is great. I don't even need to see the lift. Just the jumping afterwards, like the joy that you see, it comes across as very authentic, and that is for you. Like what you did is for you. So you can do. I don't know. Take that.
Totally. I appreciate it. I was like too cool for school before all this happened. I didn't celebrate. I didn't really open myself up at all. And so I will say that's one thing that has really happened. Like, for one, I'm just abundantly grateful. It's like any single thing that I achieve or am able to do, I'm just so excited for. And I never forget the me that, didn't know if I could do it again. And then it's like, I remember I just didn't want to get found out about my fears or insecurities or whatever. And it's like, what this has blessed me with is it's like, you can see it. And I've totally accepted it. So there's nothing I'm trying to, I mean, I'm sure there is on some levels, but like hide or protect where I have to be, too cool for school or not authentic. It's just, you just get to see me. I can't help it.
That's great. Well, listen, let's talk about some of the things you're doing, some of the projects maybe you're working on. What do you got in the works?
I am starting my own podcast, which I'm super excited about. I'm so grateful, for you reaching out for me to be on it. And I have realized that conversations like these with people with amazing stories and insights and perspectives is some of the most purposeful ways that I spend my time. So I'm really excited to launch that. And then I'm a bit of a gearhead. Anyone who knows me, I always have the outfits for the gym. So I'm putting together my own fitness apparel brand that's going to be, inspirational, motivational, cool.
Awesome. We're excited to see it. So if someone wants to find out more about like what's going on with that, where do they find you?
Yeah, totally. If you want to find any information about those things, the easiest way would be to go to my Instagram. It's at the Sarah, SaraMae. And there's a link in there. You can hop on my email list and I'll send out all info about when I'll be launching those and where to find them.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. SaraMae, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for, even though we got the crazy yard guy in the background, we made it work.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Stoked about the podcast. Everyone check out SaraMae. Check out her Instagram and start downloading her podcast the minute it comes out. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it from me. Thank you to SaraMae for coming on here. I hope you guys got as much from that as I did. Like I said in the beginning, if you guys can help support us to fulfill our mission and it's in your means, please head over to consequenceofhabit.org and throw us a little love. I'll catch you guys next week.